He's here? Coming up next? I don't believe it. Dan Clark is here, the international speaker. No kidding. Achievers North America, Achievers Europe. Both of them named Dan Clark one of the top 10 speakers in the world. I thought I was one. He's one. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's a singer. You gotta be kidding. He's a singer, an athlete, a songwriter, a philanthropist, a screenwriter, an adventurer. He's everything. He's funny. He's inspirational. Hey, he's Dan Clark. He's changing the world, one story at a time. Stay tuned.
Dan is the author of 21 books and a primary contributing author to the Chicken Soup of the Soul series, where one of Dan's world-famous stories was made into a film at Paramount Studios, starring Jack Lemmon. Dan's writing and speaking career began when he fought his way back from a paralyzing injury that cut short his football career. Zig Ziglar sponsored Dan into the National Speakers Association and for 25 years mentored Dan to become one of the most sought-after speakers on the planet. Dan has headlined the largest stages in the world, working with Fortune 500 companies, Super Bowl champions, military leaders, and government rulers who continually seek Dan's thought leadership, counsel, and inspiration. In 2005, Dan was inducted into the National Speakers Hall of Fame. Dan's extraordinary life includes flying fighter jets with the Air Force Thunderbirds, catching 9.4 Gs, going Mach 2 at twice the speed of sound, racing automobiles at the Nürburgring, serving on the Olympic Committee, and carrying the Olympic torch in the 2002 Winter Olympics, and soaring to the edge of space in a U-2 reconnaissance craft, where after a full day of training, accelerated to a classified altitude above 70,000 feet, and for 3.5 hours gazed into the blackness of space, witnessing the breathtaking curvature of the Earth, and experienced a 15-mile high perspective on things as they really are. As CEO of the Art of Significance Leadership Development Corporation, Dan has interviewed and hung out with the most celebrated personalities of our time, and has appeared on over 500 TV and radio programs, including Oprah and Glenn Beck, and on the cover of Millionaire magazine. But more important to Dan, and most significant of all, in 2012, Dan was named Utah Father of the Year. Truly a Renaissance man for all reasons, who will help you transform your life from success to significance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Dan Clark.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing your time. And I'm really, there were many people on my podcast, but I think you're very special. For me, you represent, and again, maybe I'm saying silly things, but you represent what America has got the best. I mean, your character, your integrity, even your voice, like, and it's really gives me the sense of kind of really big power, and wise power, not just something which you were using wisely all your life and still using, right? You're still using power of your words, power of your thinking and teaching, etc. And I finished now because I wanted to mention that I learned about you when I was reading Chicken Soup for Soul. And I started doing that very early. And you know what? I don't have a Russian version, but we're reading it to kids. And
Yes.
so you might be one of the contributors. I think you were editing this one. I think you edited like 12 volumes of Chicken Soup for Soul. And I know that Jack Canfield came to you for advice because you were so smartly selling one of your first books, which is actually very, very good. But you know what? I wanted to start with something different. But now I just went downstairs and two of my girls, my young ones, Daria and Alexandra, were fighting. And I became upset and I started shouting because I couldn't understand, I still can't, why everything is so wonderful and they fight. And my question to you, I'd like to start with that. I know that you have 4 wonderful children, and you have already grandchildren. Tell me, what now looking back, what you did well and what you could do better
As a parent,
as a parent, as a father.
well, when so I played it. It's an honor to be with you, Dr. Polonsky, and I hope I can call you Gennady. I feel like we're instant friends. And for the viewers, you know, you're the epitome of sophisticated elegance, polished professionalism.
Oh.
Your hair has not moved since 1977. You're just perfect. And you have no wrinkles. No, look at me. I'm losing my hair and I'm growing it in places I don't even need it. That's not a fair trade-off. My only hope is that the hair in my right ear will grow long enough I can comb it up over the top of my head and fake all of you out. But having said that, I played American football for 13 years until one day in a tackling practice, the coach blew the whistle and two of us ran into each other full speed. Only parts of our bodies that made contact. Lyle's helmet crashed into my helmet in a violent head-on collision. My right shoulder was smashed into the cutting edge of my fiberglass pads, and we slammed to the ground. And when Lyle got off of me, my eye drooped. I had loss of speech. I couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed. My arm dangled helplessly at my side. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months. And I went to 16 of the very finest doctors in all of North America. 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would never get any better. How many of you have ever heard that? And what happens if you believe it? You never get any better. And now that I've recovered, I'm frequently asked 3 questions, or at least 2 questions that will lay the foundation to answering your question there, Gennady. Number 1, now that I've recovered, people say, why did I go to so many different doctors? And the answer is I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Mm-hmm. So that introduced me to the power of the mind, understanding that it's the belief of the leader that creates the leader, and it's the belief of the leader that creates the expectation, and it's the expectation that creates the behavior. And so too many times, you know, corporate leaders and athletic sports team coaches and educators and parents, we get confused by the fact that you cannot coach results, you can only coach behavior. We all think we can coach results, but we can't. We can only coach behavior. A sports team coach can't say to our players, go out and win. What the heck does that mean? A corporate leader cannot say to his sales professionals, go out and sell more, win more market share, grow the business. And a parent, we cannot say to our children, go out and make responsible decisions. What the heck does that mean? We cannot coach results. We can only coach behavior. And behavior is created 100% of the time by what we believe. The second most frequently asked question I'm asked about why did I stay paralyzed for so long? The answer is simple. I was asking the wrong questions. Are you? You see, I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. Mm-hmm. And once we answer why, figured out the how-to becomes clear and simple. Not easy. We still have to do hard things. It's the hard that makes it great. Mm-hmm. Just like on this podcast, we've had to figure this out. And my level of respect for you, Gennady, has just grown immensely because you didn't get frazzled. You said, okay, so what do we do? So in a direct answer to your question, what can we do as parents? The coolest thing, my friend, is that the formula that creates every culture, Fortune 100 companies, international, in Kiev, in Moscow, in Syria, in Brazil, in the States, in Canada, does not matter. The formula for creating every single culture is exactly the same. For corporations and companies, for sports teams, for government agencies, for education, where our children go to school, and in our own homes as parents. And here's the formula. It's awesome. Every culture is created between the strongest belief, the highest expectation and the best behavior. Sorry, let me start over. Every culture is created between the strongest belief, the highest expectation, and the best behavior that the leader lives by, and the weakest belief, the lowest expectation, and the worst behavior that the leader tolerates. So the three words in all of our languages, the three words in all of our countries that apply to creating a culture in a corporate business, in a sports team, in an educational school system, in our government agencies, in our military, and especially in our families, the three words between what the leader lives by,
So parent, yeah,
and what we are willing to tolerate. So when it comes to parenting, as our children grew older and they became teenagers, we realized that their friends' parents were raising them differently than we were raising our own children. Mm-hmm. And there's no way in a million years that we could ever even dream about having a parent meeting with all of our children's friends and agree on how we were all going to raise our children exactly the same. It's never going to happen. So what we had to do is realize what we can control and let go of what we cannot control. And what we can control is the culture in our companies, in our sports teams, in our children's schools, and especially in our own homes. So every single time our children brought home a friend or a group of friends, they knew that in our home, we had a higher standard of performance, and it didn't matter what they did outside of our home. It didn't matter because it didn't affect us. Mm-hmm. What matters is, do they and will they buy into our higher standard of performance based on what we believe and what we're not willing to tolerate? So, for example, everyone who came into our home, our children's friends and our adult friends, knew that once they came into our home, there was no vulgarity. No one was telling off-color jokes. Everyone said please and thank you. Trying to teach our children, hey, what's the magic word? And our little girl says, now. I said, no, it's please. And there is no sexism, there's no racism, there's no bigotry, and especially there's no gossip or drama. So to your question, Gennady, one day I went downstairs with a tray full of snacks and drinks for my daughters and their 10 teenage girlfriends. And when I came down the stairs, I interrupted a conversation where they were gossiping. They were bad-mouthing a couple of girls who were not there. What a perfect teaching moment. I said, girls, in our house, remember, we don't gossip. There's no drama. And what you need to understand, young ladies, is that when you talk badly about someone who's not here, the second you leave our home, everyone's going to wonder and worry about what they're saying about you when you're not around, behind your back.
Exactly.
So we must be loyal to those who are not present. That's how we develop trust. And when we convert that into the corporate world, the definition of sales is the transference of trust. So again, that formula is so powerful, and we can plug it into any one of our cultures, in any one of our countries, in all of our languages represented on this amazing program. So one last suggestion. So when I was paralyzed and I started to recover, I was asked to speak many, many times. And I started accepting those invitations, went to my dear sweet father. I said, Dad, he was a great speaker. What kind of a speaker should I be? He said, be the kind of speaker that you want to listen to. And that's why I became a storyteller. Mm. And as I continually spoke to young people mostly, a world-renowned motivational teacher by the name of Zig Ziglar heard me speak, took me under his wing, sponsored me into the National Speakers Association way back in 1982. And for the next 25 to 30 years until he passed away, Zig Ziglar became my personal mentor, my personal coach, who tutored me and taught me the art and science of public speaking, and especially the art of storytelling, story selling, and how to close the sales. And the reason why I bring that up is because Zig knew that I was a new father. In 1985, my first child was born, our son, Danny. In all humility, I named him after myself because I couldn't spell Gennady. And Zig Ziglar, because we always talked about the power of the mind, he challenged me to write a credo that I could teach my young son, that I could teach all 4 of our children, that would create a higher standard of performance based on a higher standard of belief that would build their self-esteem from day one into the world. And so my little guy, as a newborn, he's in his crib, and every night before I clicked off the reading light, I would get eye contact with him and I would repeat the Clark Credo. I'm smart, talented, and I never say never. I'm wanted, important, lovable, capable, and I can succeed. I'm a great athlete. I love music, and I'm going to get good grades in school. I never say I can't. I always say I can, I will. If I spill or make a mistake, I clean it up, learn why, and say no big deal. If I fall or fail, I just get back up and go again. God loves you, and you love God. So you always treat others as you want to be treated. So when they're away from you, they always say, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. If any of your viewers want a copy of that, we'll give them a way to get a hold of me, and they can download the Clark Credo, put it on their refrigerator, help them with their parenting skills. Because here's the power, Dr. Polonsky, here's the power of the Clark Credo. As my young boy got old enough where he started to speak one word here, one word there, then putting sentences together through spaced repetition learning, eventually I would go into his room, and before we clicked off the reading light, I would say, Danny, who are you? And he would repeat back to me, word verbatim, I'm smart, talented, and I never say never. I'm wanted, important, lovable, capable, and I can succeed. And he would repeat back to me the entire Clark Credo. Then our first daughter was born 3 years later. Then our third child, our second daughter. Then our fourth child, Alexandria, our fourth child. And I repeated that experience with them, and now they're all adults. Danny has 2 children, 2 of my grandchildren.
Right.
Aubrey Isabella at 4 can quote back the Clark Credo, and Emma, she will eventually be able to quote it back because I've been teaching it to her. And my newest grandbaby, I've already looked her in the eyes and repeated the Clark Credo, even though she was only 1 week old. And I've done it again at the 3-month and now at the 4-month mark. Coolest thing, every single one of my children now are adults, and they can still quote back word verbatim the Clark Credo. So when they're interviewed and someone says, what was it like to be raised by a motivational speaker? They laugh. And they quote the Clark Credo, and now it has become generational, which allows us as parents, as early as we possibly can, and it's never too late, to do whatever we can do to prove true that you cannot coach results, you can only coach behavior. And behavior is created 100% sustained by our belief. What do they believe about themselves? What's their self-worth? Do they respect others? Do they understand the true definition of love? What's it all about? And I want to take this moment to just thank you for having me on your program, because every guest whom you've interviewed and all the years that you brought these amazing gurus to your world in Eastern Europe and in Russia and Syria, all the Romania, all the places where you've brought speakers, which I want you to bring me there live, belly to belly, as soon as this COVID-19 is over. But because of your influence, Gennady, you are allowing us to teach in our own little way and deliver magical nuggets of wisdom, one of which could change someone's entire day, change their parenting style, change their philosophy towards life, especially when we understand that everything is based on our culture. We become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most, which means we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings, even online. Congratulations for keeping this vision and this passion alive, my dear friend.
Well,
and for those of you who speak Russian, ya счастлив, я очень счастлив, я вас люблю. And I love to say spasiba, and I wish you would say back to me, Pожалуйста.
Thank you so much. Look, but it's really kind of because this it's like let me put it that way. So it's basically affirmations. What Jack Canfield and a lot of guys in Napoleon Hill were saying, affirmations. Um, at the same time, sort of because I'm going through this parenting, and now because I'm wiser, I can see my mistakes so clearly, and I know that a single mistake of a father or a mother can actually damage the child. And if you look at the psychology, books, they're saying that all our problems or complexes actually have got roots and legs in our childhood. And our parents, with all their love, very often are guilty for, kind of putting that. And my parents were absolutely wonderful, but I never forget, I couldn't sing. My dad wanted me to become a piano, to teach me piano. And we went to the musical school. And I was supposed to pass an exam. And I was supposed to sing some, Russian song. And I was really bad. I was like 7 years old. And I remember we were walking with my dad. And he was holding my hand. And he was saying, and he's a brilliant singer himself. And he was saying, oh gosh, where did you get these genes from? And, and it was kind of nothing. But for me, my dad was the ultimate authority. And he was questioned my ability to sing. And I still remember, can you imagine walking just hand in hand? And I loved it. I said, I love my dad, has passed away, but I loved him dearly. And I still remember that. And I was shy to sing. I'm 63 now. And a year ago, I started taking singing classes. And I've realized, «Вьется в тесной печурке огонь». And people were saying, wow, you can sing. And I said, no, I can't. And they said, no, you can. And I started developing it, and I'm learning something. And I thought, well, if my dad would be more supportive, I mean, he was supportive 100%, but this teeny weeny, this singing thing, which, okay, it's small thing, but if you'd say, stuff it. I mean, let's still sing. You're still good. It was still like encouragement. That probably would affect my whole life. And that's what I'm trying to be like, if I want to say, to be critical, I'm hitting my head on the head, saying, no, you have to be supportive. You have to be, and it's not always happening. That's
yeah, what we need is like you said, you hit the nail on the head. You understand that opportunity is what allows us to find, our talents. And don't misunderstand me. Self is not discovered. Self is created.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in the States and you and I hopped in an automobile and drove out to Boulder, Colorado, when someone says, go find yourself, Gennady, where do most people go find themselves in America? Boulder, Colorado. So we could hop in a car and we could pull into Boulder, Colorado, and we would actually see people walking out in the bushes with backpacks on looking for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They act like we can play hide and go seek with ourselves. Hey, where have you been my whole life? Come out from behind that rock. I can see you now. We act like we can discover who we actually are, when in reality, self is not discovered. Self is created.
That's excellent.
That's created in a spiritual realm, based on what I understand to be human orbits and divine rendezvous. Remember, every one of your listeners can Google me can Google my adventure to space. I had a chance to soar to the edge of space at over 16 miles on YouTube. It has to be classified 3.5 hours sortie and over 70,000 feet, but we're friends now. So at 90,000 feet, you see 2/3 of the state of California. You see mapped outlines of America. 90,000 feet, you see the curvature of the earth and the entire world. It's so extraordinary, where you tear up and realize the significance of human orbits and divine rendezvous. And when we landed, what I discovered, my friend, is that things happen for a reason. There's no coincidence in our universe. Things happen for a reason, but it's our responsibility to determine what that reason is. So you, Gennady, are in a human orbit, and over here in America, I'm in a human orbit. And the divine rendezvous is when our orbits collide, which means things happen for a reason, but it's our responsibility to determine what that reason is. So to your point, my dad, you know, I've written a lot of songs, country songs, gold records. But one of my most popular songs that I wrote about my dad, it used to get a lot of radio play. It is called Special Man, lyrical hook. Any male can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad. And to that point, when you Google Dan Clark U-2 spy plane and can see the inspirational atmosphere in which I sat for 5 hours looking at the curvature of the earth, gazing into the endless blackness of space and pondering eternity, you'll know why I can't get out of my mind my dad's conversation. He battled cancer for 6.5 years. And 2 months before he passed away, he gathered all the family together and he said, "What are all of you learning from this?" So think about it. Pain is a signal to grow, not to suffer. Once we learn the lesson the pain is teaching us, the pain goes away. So in life, there's no mistakes, only lessons. So now you're in a position as a father of 2 young, beautiful daughters, and you have the opportunity to look over your life and not beat yourself up ever again. Just remember the lessons, remember the experiences, extract from them the life lessons, which allow us to become better today than we were yesterday. You think about it. No matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future, which means you can't always control what happens, but you can always control what happens next. And the fact that you're even bringing this memory up about your dad and your singing, and then you teased us with 15 seconds of this amazing voice. Hey, you've learned the lesson, and now it's an opportunity for you to just lay the menu open for your daughters and your bride, and say, okay, here are all the options at this life, this restaurant of life. Do you want to take violin lessons? Do you want to learn how to sing? Do you want to go into gymnastics? Do you want to become an author? Do you want to learn how to draw? And it's amazing how once we start to doodle, or once we start to sing, or once we start to play, we identify if that is a God-given talent worth perfecting and pursuing, or if it's not. I mean, right out of the chute, you can tell if your child is coordinated or not. You know, one of our children is a world-class gymnast and a world-class dancer now, traveling the world. She's now in London with Dua Lipa, the biggest name pop star in the world, as a choreographer, as a dancer, as a business professional. She's so coordinated. I'll never throw another one of my children under the bus, but one of the other children is not as coordinated, and she could have never been a gymnast. She's a pretty good dancer, but she could have never been a gymnast, but she became an amazing singer-songwriter. So the interesting thing is what you've already learned, my dear friend, and what you're now teaching us by bringing it up on this program. You are the epitome of, no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. So I honor you, and every parent, tuned in needs to remember that we don't beat ourselves up. We're doing the best we can. But at the end of the day, it's not enough to say, I will do my best. We must succeed in doing that which is necessary, which means you never lose if you always learn. That we can figure out a way to become better today than we were yesterday. And in our home, we taught our children the only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. Stop competing against others. It only destroys your self-confidence, because you'll spend your life saying, I'm not enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not talented enough, I'm not handsome enough. Says who? Compared to what? Albert Einstein said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it is stupid. So we have to make sure our children answer every single day, are you tall or are you short? Are you wide or are you thin? Are you fast or are you slow? Are you pretty or are you pretty ugly? Are you smart or are you stupid? Says who compared to what? And if we could transport our beautiful children, if we could transport our spouses, our significant others, if we could transport ourselves to that deserted island where we had no access to fashion magazines or those Photoshop Twiggy models if you're a young woman, if we were transported to a deserted island, we had no access to other so-called successful, wealthy individuals, would we not suddenly just wake up every morning and say, I'm all that in a bag of chips. I love me because I'm constantly striving to be the best version of myself, and I'm not surrounding myself with people who intimidate me or put me down to make themselves feel better about who they are.
Right.
You remember, everybody needs to remember, you're on this earth for a reason. You were not born in the 1800s, and you were not born 20 years from now. You were born right now, and you are here on this earth for a specific purpose, and it's our responsibility to find that mission, which has to involve lifting others up and serving others in every language, in every country, because it's from space at 90,000 feet, we truly are all brothers and sisters. And we've got to stop killing people in the name of our so-called God. It's time for peace on earth, and it's time for us to come together and figure out a way to serve one another so that everybody leaves us, even on a recorded program like this. So everyone leaves us every time saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, you can be quoted so easily. I mean, because I think what you're saying is so precise and so true. And of course, it's like, yes, family is the foundation, but the surroundings very often gives different message. And you mentioned glossy magazines and unrealistic figures and the gadgets. You have to have this type of gadget, otherwise, you'll be looked down upon. So it's like, terrible, and it's getting worse actually. And you feel that how you can withstand, like in your family, yes, people entering your territory, they had, certain rules like no swearing, it's absolutely fantastic. But when your children, would go out, they must have this resilience, and they must have this strong will. But now, for example, I have these two small, girls, 7 and 8, and it's how they can be strong enough. And of course, I want to do at most. I have another thing, which, if you don't mind, because
before you ask me, may I just share a very short family experience that adds to this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
So before COVID-19, before the pandemic, when we could assemble, all of our 4 adult children came into town, and they invited some of their friends to join us. And we gathered in our formal dining room. I'm coming to you from my library.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me about the difference between success and significance. The successful people, as you learn in my newest book, The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success, forward by Jack Canfield. Successful people get what they think they want, but those of us who are striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get, so we don't die with our dreams and our goals and our music still in us. So to your point in bringing the significance of strengthening our beliefs and preparing ourselves for what is to come, we have to understand 2 quotes and then this quick little story. Quote number 1 that applies to all of us at every age, which brings us together. It's what we have in common. 7 and 8-year-old children, and you and I and our spouses, our significant others, our co-workers, our fellow countrymen and fellow countrywomen. Here's the quote: today you've never been this old before. And today you'll never be this young again, so right now matters, and every right now matters. And as I said, no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. And that brings up the attitudinal difference that the things that the words we use actually matter. You see, if you look at stress in the world of business, we call stress stress. Mm-hmm. But in the world of sports, we call stress competition. Bring it on. That's all you got? That's your best, that's it? You haven't worked hard enough to beat me. Mm-hmm. In the world of leadership, we call stress urgency. which brings up that mindset, a quote that I quoted earlier. It's not enough to say, I will do my best. We must succeed in doing that which is necessary. Too many of us get frazzled. Oh my gosh, I can't handle it. Yeah, you can. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training, which means pressure is not something that's naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability. And when you know what you've been trained to do, there's never any pressure. That's why we train and practice so hard. You see the significance, Dr. Polonsky, of changing our mindset, especially in COVID-19. I will never call it a crisis. Why? Crisis does not make or break the man or woman. It just reveals the true character within.
Right.
Here's a chance for me to grow and strengthen in a pause and purge and actually emerge from this pandemic stronger and better than I ever was before. And here's the family story. So before COVID-19, we invited all of our children back home. They invited some of their friends, and we were in the formal dining room. We were gathered around the dining room table in a huge feast. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. And we play a favorite family game, an icebreaker game called Remember When. Mm-hmm. So everybody goes around the table and each of us takes a turn. I remember when I was 9, blah, 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 blah. I remember when I was 15 at the lake house. Comes to my turn. I remember when I came home from high school with a report card that had 4 F's and 1 D on it. My dad's response, son, looks to me like you're spending too much time on one subject. And my mom thought I cheated. It was a tough family. Wow, different memories that have molded our character. As we're going around the table and everybody's taking a turn, we came to my daughter's really good friend. And she starts crying, Gennady. She starts sobbing, and I said, are you okay? She says, no. She says, I'm 31 years old and I just got divorced. She said, I just got fired from my job and my mother was just diagnosed with breast cancer. And through her tears and through her sobs, she says, I've hit rock bottom. I don't know what you would say. In that flash of inspiration, I said, sweetheart, nobody ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the core values on which we were raised. And in our economy, when it goes south, when our organizations seem to hit a bump in the road, our organizations never hit rock bottom. They hit rock foundation. They hit the baseline governing principles on which they were built. So the question for all of us, especially as parents with young children, especially as leaders in companies, especially in community activists, especially with our coworkers, the question is, are your current beliefs strong enough, deep enough, and true enough to equip you, to empower you to respond to rapid change? And if not, why not? And if when, why not right now? Because surely there's going to be another pandemic. Surely you're going to have another struggle. Surely you're going to have another obstacle thrown in your way. Why? If you're not failing a few times, it means you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So what we have to do is prepare ourselves right now before the next one occurs so we're stronger and we don't collapse under pressure. Pressure is not something that's naturally there. So sorry, thanks for letting me interrupt, but I thought that would add to the depth of our understanding of what we're talking about. It still goes to belief, still goes to writing your own personal credo, figuring out a family credo, figuring out a company credo. You know, I've been downrange firing up our troops many, many times in Iraq, Afghanistan, all over the world. And I'm curious about how the special forces, how the Navy SEALs run towards the sound of the guns when most people are running away, screaming and crying. And it's mindset. It's what they believe. They weren't born that way. They were made. Leaders aren't born. They are made. Leadership is not a noun. It's a verb. You know, standing in the front of a room and calling yourself a leader no more makes you a leader than standing in the middle of a garage makes you a truck. Leadership implies action. And when we understand that, it's critical that we focus in on what we believe. It's like ordering a taxi ride. We have to understand and answer, what do you believe right now? Not tomorrow, right now. And it's like ordering a taxi that requires that you enter in your current location. And if you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. Where are you right now during this program? And where do you want to be will never be determined or changed until you start right where you are. Right. Geographic relocation doesn't change much. You can surgically remove the stripes from a tiger and it's still a tiger. So if you, Gennady, and I, if you and I were college roommates and we decided that we were going to wake up every single morning at 6 a.m. and go to the gym and push ourselves to become the strongest, fittest men alive, and then came out of the gym and studied together for another 60 minutes to make sure we were prepared for the day and prepared for our exams, we are only changing our behavior. But if you, Gennady, if you woke up every morning at 6 a.m. and went to the gym and worked yourself out, pushed yourself to your ultimate capacity potential as a human being, and then studied for another hour to prepare yourself for the day, regardless if I did or not, that's who you really are. That's your true nature. Nobody wants to go on a diet. I'm going to lose 22 pounds. And then what happens? We gain 30 pounds back celebrating that we just lost the 22. It requires a mindset change, a shift in our reality, a lifestyle perception check up from the neck up, as Zeg says. And that requires we change who we really are, not just going through the motions. Everybody says, oh my gosh, you need an accountability partner. Well, it starts with ourselves. Are you going to get in shape? Are you going to lose weight? Because you say so, not because it's expected by others, but because it's demanded of ourselves? If so, you would change your true nature, and programs like this can really make a difference. If not, they just keep clicking on another program. They attend another seminar. Oh, I got to go to the 14th speaker this year because I still am not getting the results I choose or I desire. And it's because they have not changed or deepened or strengthened their core values and their belief system on get back up and go again. We just met, Gennady, and I know so much about who you are just because of our conversations based on the questions you're asking me, and especially what happened, and not your reaction to when our internet went down, but your response. And you came back on screen with the same smile, the same perfect tan, the same perfect hair that you had before. You were not frazzled at all. And that's what it really is about, my friends. It really is about changing your true nature. If you have negative thoughts and put on a smile, that's not who you really are. And eventually it will catch up to you.
Yes.
Yeah, just throw out this analogy. The other day, my friend was walking along and he got bumped and spilled his coffee. And I said, so what happened? He said, I spilled my coffee. I said, no, you didn't. He says, yeah, I just got bumped and I spilled my coffee. I said, no, you didn't. I said, what you did was prove who you really are. You didn't spill your coffee. It could have been tea. It could have been water. It could have been Diet Coke. You didn't spill your coffee. You basically revealed who you really are. And during this COVID-19 and pandemic, when the rest of the world, for the rest of our lives, until you and I take our last breath, when someone bumps us, when the economy hits us, when we're slapped with isolation and social distancing and the shutdown of our countries, basically we're being bumped. Who you really are is what will spill out. How you respond is really what it's all about. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you that illuminates who you really are, your true nature. And when you fix and strengthen and deepen our true nature, bring on any discomfort, any disruption you want, and we will respond.
Yeah, wonderful. It comes together with another part of what you were teaching, is not what you are, but who you are. And I love that very much, because I never forget, once I was with Japanese many years ago, and they were saying, oh, I'm Toyota. I'm, it was something, another Japanese company.
Maybe Sony or something, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like so much kind of associated themselves with the companies. So and it was very difficult when we had a conversation, we had some beers, and who they are, what they're interested in. No, I'm Toyota. And he was like, woo, woo, woo. And I thought, well, that's kind of, maybe you're a good worker, but I don't think, I felt very uncomfortable because I couldn't get to personality. I couldn't understand what they really like. I wanted to ask about traditions, families, etc. No, I'm Toyota. And I know it was maybe exceptional kind of narrow-minded people, but I thought, well, that's something when people grew into what they are, grew into their profession. For example, in your case, you're a singer, you're a philanthropist, you're at the board of, this Operation Smile and Operation Kids. It's, so many things you do, and you're a speaker and you're an entrepreneur and you're, military in a way. I mean, you're very much, what you've done in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you're, a spaceman and you're a father, and, so many dimensions, but basically they're spinning around against one core, several core values, who you are. No, not what you are, because if you put into another shoes, you are not going to change. You're going to be the same Dan, because that's who you are.
And you reminded me, when I was paralyzed, one of the reasons why I stayed paralyzed for 14 months was because I confused who I was with what I did. You see, I thought I was a football player. I thought I was a star professional athlete, when in reality, that's just what I did. It's not who I am as a man. And when we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become a human doing instead of a human being. Exactly. Unacceptable of significance is what we seek. And that's exactly what you just taught us and reminded us about. Which means it's really important that we understand the psychology behind discomfort and the psychology behind growth. What we have to understand is that adversity is what introduces us to ourselves. Right. No one will ever know how strong we are until being strong is our only choice. And it's so critically important that every one of you understand that when I was paralyzed, I was devastated. I was decimated. My dreams were shattered. My heart was broken. I lost my identity because it was based on performance instead of on character and class. Which means now I can report to the world, report to every one of you on this program. My accident, my paralysis is clearly one of the best things that ever happened to me. Don't misunderstand. My accident isn't one of the best things that ever happened to me, but who I became as a man and what I learned about priorities and life and love and time as a result of going through this setback clearly makes it one of the best things that ever happened to me. So we cannot run from challenges. That's what makes us stronger today than we were yesterday. As an athlete, I would go to the gym 6 days every week and spend a minimum of 60 minutes, sometimes 120 minutes, sometimes 2 hours in the gym working on my body. And when I was paralyzed, I don't know what it equates to in stone using, international weight measurements, but in pounds, when I was injured, I was 6'5", 278 pounds. I bench pressed 450 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I was the strongest, the biggest, the fastest I'd ever been in my entire life. And that didn't help me. Because when all is said and done, what I learned in the gym is how I recovered, what kept me fired up during my rehab, and what keeps me going to this day. It's that every single time I would go into the gym, the goal excuse me, was to put just a little bit more weight on the bar than I had on it the day before. To spend just 2 or 3 minutes longer on the treadmill or on the elliptical, on the pre-core than I did the day before. To push myself to my ultimate capacity and potential as a human being right now, then, and then emerge from the gym a little bit sore, a little bit fatigued, a little bit tired, because it's on the recovery day. Even though I went 6 days in a row, one day I would work my shoulders and my chest. The next day I would work my back and my legs, and I would alternate, because it's on the recovery day where your muscles actually strengthen. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to understand that what allowed me to recover, what allows any of us to recover from anything, is the mindset that adversity is what introduces us to ourselves. So before another crisis occurs, before we face another pandemic or the economy goes south, before we have to deal with a different leader in our country, what we need to do right now is strengthen ourselves, prepare ourselves, go into that psychological gym, if you will, and start listening to podcasts like yours, Dr. Polonsky. Start reading other books. Definitely get my book, The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success, because I've identified the 12 highest universal laws, not my laws, that I guarantee will transform your life from successfully getting what you think you want to significantly wanting what you get, so you don't die with your music still in you. That's the contribution that you're making to the world on every one of these interviews, Gennady. And it's an honor for me to just be one of your colleagues, one of your guests. And it's so crazy, brother. We just met. And if you think about it, what makes you significant, and hopefully what makes me significant if you think I am, it's what we believe. And even though we're on different sides of the world today, we actually believe the same things. Our core values match up. Who you are and who I'm constantly trying to be are perfectly aligned, which means this has nothing to do with countries, borders, language barriers. What it has to do with what we have in common. I refuse to talk about cultural diversity. I always talk about cultural commonality. I don't want to focus in on what makes us different. I want to talk about what makes us the same. Human beings, same God who made you, made me too. And if you disagree, I challenge you to figure out a way to go to space, look down on Mother Earth, and realize we are brothers and sisters. And you have a cooler accent than I do, and it kind of ticks me off.
Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, you know, after listening to you, really, you know, I mean, I'm kind of experienced guy, and you know, I have my own things. But when you talk, everything becomes more clearer. It becomes more structured, and you feel like I have to go and kick some ass now. You know?
Yeah, click off. But that's such a great question. I don't want to interrupt you. But that's the question I know you just asked in your own amazing way. What are the viewers going to do the second we click off this program? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Let me just talk about a word, responsibility. I love words, obviously. And let's divide that word, response and ability. Do you have the ability to write your own personal credo and a family credo and a company credo? Do you have the ability to pick up a man or a woman who's sitting on a bench on a cold day waiting for the bus? Do you have the ability to invite people over into your home and give them a hot meal? Do you have the ability to surround your 2 children and my 4 children, or however many children you have, with their friends, and do your best to connect and up-level their belief system? Do you have the ability to always be positive and choose to encourage instead of discourage? Yes. And the list goes on and on and on. Do you have the ability to do this? Yes, you do. Yes, I do. What will your response be to that ability? Will you stop and offer this elderly woman a ride to her destination so she doesn't have to continuously sit there on a cold bench waiting for the bus in a snowstorm? Will you will you respond when the time for service calls? And it's not always in words, my friends. Even though I'm an author of 35 books, even though I'm a professional speaker, 71 countries, 6,000 presentations, millions of people, 30-second story puts everything into perspective. One of my most famous stories. As a primary contributing author on all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, I've really understood that we edit so every word pays its own way. Let's get to the message. Let's teach the message in an emotional, memorable way. Think about it. And here's the story. A mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes later, daughter walks in through the front door of her home, and her mother scolds her. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. You're 30 minutes late. She says, oh, Mom. I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. It broke all to pieces. It was awful. Her mother said, so you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again? She said, oh, no, Mommy. I didn't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry. We can be there for each other, but the question that you just brought up, my friend, is what are you going to do once you click off this program? Will you respond to the abilities that you already currently possess? And as my dad used to always remind me, right now you know enough, and you're talented enough, and you can do enough, and you have the resources available enough to take action and do something right now. Remember, the goal is to be better today than you were yesterday, not because it's expected by others, but because it's demanded of yourself. You're changing your true nature, not just going through the motions and changing our behavior to please someone else.
Dan, I feel that I had the coaching session myself. So really most grateful for that. And I think, my humble podcast, but you as a really true leader really should be shown probably somewhere around hospitals, when people are losing, hope. And then you're absolutely right. And there is a big difference in recovery rate. If you believe that you have a big why, why you want to leave, for what, then the recovery rate is much higher than people who are feeling that, yes, that's it, I'm done. And
absolutely. And, you bring that up. My wife and I, we volunteer at a children's hospital here. I live in the mountains of Utah, and we volunteer in a very famous children's hospital 2 days a week on Sundays and on Tuesdays. And so that's our job, is to go in and comfort and offer warm blankets and a hug. And here's what happened to me though, Gennady, which it's amazing how through service, both the giver and the receiver of service are transformed.
Exactly.
Because I've broken my neck, I've broken my back, I've broken my nose, my jaw. I was a Golden Gloves boxing champion. I've had 2 hernias. That's funny. I've had 2 hernias. I've had 7 knee surgeries. I'm a hot mess. And when my wife and I first went to the Children's Hospital to volunteer, we have a little 30-minute service where we can all come together and just strengthen one another. And, it's a chance for the parents to get out of the rooms with their sick children and just talk to other parents and lift each other up, strengthen each other, like you said, comfort. And for these sick children to come out of the rooms, not when they're too sick, but they come in and they gather together for 30 minutes. And I share a couple of stories and we laugh, if you can believe it. And we obviously cry and thank each other and thank God. But my very first day when I was with my wife, we gathered together in this, it's a theater, holds maybe 100 people. And we always sit in the back to make room for the patients and their families to fill in the front seats so that it's not an inconvenience. And there's 4 floors on this children's hospital. And for about an hour that morning, before we gathered in this theater, my wife and I didn't want to take the elevator. I need some cardiovascular work. My wife and I walked up and down these 4 floors of stairs for that hour and a half before this meeting. And when we sat down on the back row of this theater, waiting for the patients and their families and the doctors and nurses to come in, I leaned over to my wife and I said, oh my gosh, my back hurts so bad. It has the biggest knot where I broke it. And my knees are killing me. Oh my gosh. And just then, out of the door walks a young 13-year-old girl. Her hair has fallen out. She's bald because of chemotherapy and radiation treatment, battling leukemia, battling cancer of the blood. And she's all tubed up, pushing her own intravenous tower with a big smile on her face. And she sits down on the front row. And I couldn't help but weep. I had no right to ever complain about my bad back and my knees ever again. So when we go to a hospital, when we try to comfort those with COVID-19, when we're trying to reach out and serve our fellow men and women, our lives are also changed and up-leveled in the process. Because if you're ever feeling down, I guarantee there's someone in our world who's lower than you, who's going through more pain and suffering. And when we can reach down and help them up, it strengthens our heart, it strengthens our character, it deepens our love and understanding. And suddenly we stop feeling sorry for ourselves. So as we're winding down our time, it's amazing how you just bring up these nuggets of wisdom, brother, that are just part of the way you think, the way you live, and you allow me to illuminate using an experience, because you just taught the world about the significance of service before self. That if we truly want to change our true nature and become better human beings, the quickest and most powerful, time-tested way to do that is to serve others. You know, I'm not writing books to make money. I'm trying to share my experiences so that you and I team up and we can help people shorten their learning curves, learn from our mistakes, but also learn from our successes, learn from our failures, learn from our victories. And that's the purpose of your programs, bringing live speakers in. I think I already mentioned it, but just in case I didn't, I want to come. I want you to promote me throughout Easter. I want to come and do some belly-to-belly live presentations, because there's nothing more powerful than connecting heart to heart, eye to eye, spirit to spirit, laughing and crying and leaving differently than we were when we arrived. I miss the live experiences so much. And you, my friend, are the guru. You have such an amazing reputation. I hope you'll call on me. And if you say yes right now, that means we have all these thousands of witnesses. I can't wait to come to Eastern. I can't wait to team up with you, my friend.
Because, you know, I knew by your writing, but now I heard you speaking, and I know that it's so powerful. You know, Zoom, Shmoom, it still generates this energy. One thing which is missing, I'd like to give you a hug right now. I'd like to feel your palm. I'd like to give you a handshake, and I bloody miss it, because for me it's very, it's very important, this. And of course, COVID deprived us of that, but I'm sure it will pass, like a lot of other things. And there'll be events. Some people say virtual reality. There'll be hologramic thing, maybe, but I prefer to have ordinary human communication. And I know that if I feel inspired, but if it would be, let's say, 10,000 people in the audience, and the energy of us, energy of intention, of changing things, of changing ourselves, becoming better, making the world a better place, thanks to your words and your experiences and your powerful articulative sort of expression of those things which a lot of us feel deep inside, but we cannot say that power enough, as we do.
But the memories of speaking in Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and in Kiev, there in Ukraine, and all throughout the former Soviet Union. My first trip there doing leadership training for the United Nations was in 1991. The collapse of the Soviet Union, glasnost, was underway. As you know, the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, and that's when you started shifting your life around. But the one thing that really helped me understand what it means to be an international citizen, a global citizen, is that when I interacted with so many of the folks in Russia, sometimes 3,000 in my audience, I was there for 15 days at a time and produced these huge shows, lots of military leadership, lots of healthcare professionals, and lots of educators. And I realized that in Russia, they put the same emphasis on what's important as we do here in America, and that their parents love their children just like we do. And that the craziness between, warring factions or, political parties accusing or threatening one another seems so useless to me, because I fell in love with the Russian people. I fell in love with the Baltic people. I fell in love with the Romanians and, Armenia, all the places that I've had a chance to go. Italy, I know you've been there, Albania obviously is close to Greece. It's just so critically important that we, through your influence, start shrinking the world and simply reminding us about where we connect is through love of family and dedication to character and service before self. And again, using my quote, it's, the same God who made you made me too. It's not about race or religion. It's not about gender. Here in my library, I have models of all the jets and aircraft that I've flown over the years. I've flown most of the fighter jets in the United States Air Force and all of the bombers. Like I said, I went up to space in a U-2 reconnaissance aircraft. And it occurs to me that when I look at one of these models of an airplane, let me just grab one right here. Good old F-16.
Oh.
Flown 6 of these. I flew with the United States Thunderbirds.
F-16.
Do you realize when you climb, let me just teach us 2 things that we learned from flying a fighter jet. Number one, when you climb up the ladder, actually, let me just share. I've gone 9.4 Gs, twice the speed of sound, did everything you can imagine, aileron rolls, loop the loops, the whole deal. And when we landed, the first jet, I asked my pilot, I said, how did we fly this magnificent machine? The cockpit is crammed full of gauges and gadgets, high technology at its highest level. How did we fly this magnificent flying machine? He says, by feel. I said, what do you mean? He said, you become the plane. I said, what do you mean? He said, when you climbed up that ladder and slid into the cockpit, did you strap into the F-16 or did you strap the F-16 onto you? That in life, if we want to take ourselves to the next level, if we want to actually go supersonic, it's not about what we know. It's not about the left brain cognitive psychobabbling neurotechnical stuff that everybody thinks it's about, AI, artificial intelligence. No, we take ourselves to the next level and go supersonic in every aspect of our lives with the right side of our brain, the touchy-feely, relational, laughing, crying side of our brain. Knowledge is power. We've all been taught that in every one of our languages in every one of our countries. Knowledge is power, but knowledge has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world is going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. Bottom line, reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action.
Exactly.
Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. So in our world of social injustice and the news and the craziness in all of our worlds, especially here in America, let's just remind ourselves something. Every time I've flown in a fighter jet, everybody asks me, so did you throw up? Did you pop your cookies? And let me just say, every once in a while, in fact, one time I was upside down so long, I think I'm the only human being who's ever thrown down. But here's what we learn that brings about equality. When you climb into that fighter jet, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, black or white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't matter what your religious credo is. The jet does not care. Are you emotionally ready? Yes, the training must have taken place, but are you emotionally ready to make sure that you understand that the most powerful intelligence is not artificial. It's still human intelligence, emotional intelligence, and what we're prepared to do with the training and skills and talents that we've worked so hard to strengthen and perfect. It's so critically important that people understand the significance of your program, the significance of you spearheading this program, because you have the ability to bring all of us like minds together and remind us that it's not that tough. When you know what you believe and you're strong enough, bring it on. Remember, you don't win the game on game day. And if you understand American football, an American football game lasts 60 minutes, and there's about 60 plays that have a start and an end, a beginning and an end. Where you get the ball, you either throw it or run it, somebody tackles you, it ends, and then you start another one. So in a 60-minute American football game, you have 60 plays. What you need to understand is this. Not every play is designed to score a touchdown. Sometimes you run this play and you only go a foot. Then you run another play and it goes 3 yards. Then you go another play and it goes 1 yard. And then you run another play and that guy breaks loose for 30 yards and scores the winning touchdown. Every single play sets up the next play. Every day sets up the next day. Every interview, every opportunity, every podcast we listen to, every speaker we listen to, every book we read sets us up for the next one, until we become that human being that we dream to be and transform our lives from successful to significance. In the football analogy, there are 4 quarters in a football game. 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, total of 60 minutes in an American football game. If you're behind in the first quarter, that doesn't mean you're going to lose the game. If you're ahead in the first quarter or the third quarter, that doesn't mean you're going to win the game. There's nothing more insignificant than the halftime score, which means every single play matters. You can't afford to take off one play. And I could go on and on. I sure hope you have me back. I got so many stories and jokes and quotes that we need to share, brother. Let me just share. My Aunt Lucy has inspired me for a long time. When my Aunt Lucy was 63 years old, she started walking 5 miles every day. Now she's 91 and we don't know where she is. Ha! We laugh. But the number one limiting belief that holds us all back is trying to figure out a strategic direction. Where am I going or where do I want to be? And as we've spoken about this entire program, no. The question is, where are you right now? What do you believe in the 9 aspects of life? And where are you currently performing in those 9 areas? And what's one thing you can do today when you click off this program to improve yourself and move the needle in each of the 9 categories? Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, financial, family, fun and recreation, and charitable giving. That's what it takes for us to balance out our lives, become the best version of ourselves. And as I said, truly transform your life from successful to significance. I hope you will follow me on Instagram, Dan Clark Speak. I hope you'll find me on my website, danclark.com. Snoop around, click around, see what I can do to serve you and see what I talk about. Watch some of my videos. I want to connect with you so badly because we are those crazy few people on the planet who are crazy enough to believe we can actually change the world. That's why, Gennady, you, Dr. Polonsky, and I connected so quickly, and why it's such an honor that you tracked me down, and I hope you'll have me back again and again because I have some stories I want to share.
We definitely will. And in fact, I'm already planning something. It's in my head, there is a clicking things, and we definitely will have something, maybe not live, but we definitely have something like webinars. We'll do some, I'm planning a big leadership forum, but something with a twist, how we can prepare ourselves for industrial revolution and changes and technological disruptions and all these things people are afraid of. And I strongly believe that building our character, that's the most important thing, not some teeny-weeny knowledge, technical thing. Computers can do that, artificial intelligence can do that, but they cannot, recreate something which humans are capable of. So I will share with you maybe next week. I have a preliminary sort of ideas. We can
remember
think
what you
together.
just said again. Everything you say just triggers something. We have to ask ourselves what's transferable in our lives. If you jump from this job to that job, what you transfer with you, what you take with you that no one can take away.
Exactly.
It could not be your talent. You still have the talent, but what you had to do in this job might not work in this job. So it's not transferable. and your knowledge. What you needed to know to do this job might not be what is required for you to do this job. It's not transferable. The only thing transferable, regardless of where we go, is exactly what you said, Doc. Our character, who we really are. And that's what we need to work on and strengthen, because it never, ever lets us down, ever.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dan. I really appreciate your time, your passion, and I don't even want to ask you when you're going to stop, because I think you are going to be forever with your, power, I think, of your personality, which is showing in whatever you do. So really, thank you so much for.
And now I have a new dream, a new bucket list. I want my picture on your wall. It's not there.
Yes, it's not there, but it will be.
I sure hope so. In fact, find an out of focus picture of Brad Pitt and stick it up there so I look a lot more handsome than I really am.
Yeah, I mean, don't compare yourself to Brad Pitt.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dan. So I hope we'll have another interview sometime, maybe next year. But meanwhile, I will really start thinking, and I will let you know and my ideas for even next week, because I already started working on something. So you'll see whether it's feasible, whether you're interested in. But
no, I love it. And what's so fascinating to me is when I have a chance to come and speak in a foreign country, the folks in Ukraine, folks in the Baltics, the folks in Romania, the folks in Russia, you don't really care about American athletes and American heroes. So I always learn about your local heroes, your national heroes, your cosmonauts, your Olympic champions, your amazing educators, your amazing philosophers, your amazing dancers, and tell those stories when I come to your countries to make sure you know how much I love and respect your culture. And it allows me to make sure that we all understand, doesn't matter our country, man-made borders, doesn't matter our language, doesn't matter our ethnicity. The things we have in common are the exact things that we've talked about on this program, the things that you represent, Gennady, that have made you not just Dr. Polonsky of an educational degree, but it's what's made you Dr. Polonsky as far as a life coach, an understander, an advocate of character education. And I love you for that. I honor you for that. And the world, I'm sure, joins me in thanking you for being that iconic figure that has pursued for so many years the art of significance. And it's an honor to call you friend, brother. I take a lot of pride in calling you my friend.
Thank you so much. And I feel exactly the same. I feel that we're on the same wave in a lot of things. And you're welcome to my house anytime when you're going to be around in Europe. And really, I'd be honored to have you and have a drink and talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you too. God bless you, Dan.
Have a great day.
Yeah.